Hi again from Elizabeth at the Test Prep Spot. Welcome back to writing the new SAT essay. In this lesson, we'll discuss how to read and analyze the passage. Here we go. Just some quick words on where we've been and where we're going. If you've seen my previous videos, you know that Part 1 was an intro and background to the SAT essay, and Part 2 is all about the important persuasive devices that I recommend knowing. The video you're currently watching is Part 3, how to read and analyze the passage, and we'll talk about just that. I'll break down one of the example passages from the College Board and show you the devices used by the author. If you're not familiar with this series and the Test Prep Spot, let me share a little about myself. My name is Elizabeth Yoshida, and I am the Test Prep Spot. I'm also a public school teacher, private tutor, and I have a master's degree in education. I'm a wife and a mom. My family makes a cameo at the end of this video. I have additional resources available at a few places, and they are my website, which is www.testprepspot.com, Amazon, and Teachers Pay Teachers. So before we look at the passage, let's get a big picture understanding of what you're doing with this task, starting with the prompt, which is just a fancy word for directions. The first part of the prompt, the part that comes before the passage, is the same every time. You are asked to read a passage and consider how the author uses evidence, reasoning, or stylistic or persuasive elements. For the purposes of this video, I'll call these three things, or these three areas, persuasive devices. As you read the passage, you need to identify these, and that's what we'll do in this video. Then, you'll take a few and write your essay. The College Board, which is the group that publishes the SAT, put out 7 example and practice passages. I've included their titles and authors here. It's interesting to note that most have relatively recent publishing dates, being published in the 2000s. The exception is Dr. King's speech, which was published in 1967. Also, with the exception of Dr. King and former President Jimmy Carter, the authors are not currently prominent figures or prominent figures in history. They are writers who have written passages in which they make a claim about a certain topic or idea, and they use persuasive devices to attempt to convince the reader about their claim. Also, their passages are filled with many persuasive devices, and that's why the SAT picked them. So don't be worried about not finding persuasive devices. That's the easy part, and I use air quotes when I said easy. There's really nothing easy about this task, but it is doable. I highly recommend reading these passages so you are familiar with the types of passages that the SAT is putting out as examples. The passages are of similar length too, and it's helpful to know that before you head into the actual test day. And here are the links to where you can find those passages. Now let's take a look at one of the passages and identify the persuasive devices. We'll use Paul Bogard's Let There Be Dark. It's a wonderful essay about the increase in light pollution and the loss of darkness. In case you were wondering, I did contact Mr. Bogard, and he gave me permission to use this in my lessons. So I'd like to give him another big thank you. Before we read this passage, let's take a look at the second half of the prompt. This is the part that comes after the passage, and it's a little bit different each time. You need to read this first. Read this before you even read the passage. This second half of the prompt contains the author's claim, and you need to read this first to help with understanding of the passage. If you already know the author's feelings on the issue, you have a head start with understanding. So now you know to read for persuasive devices that would support this claim. In the case of Let There Be Dark, Mr. Bogard makes the argument that natural darkness should be preserved. Okay, got it. Natural darkness should be preserved. Now I can start reading for those persuasive devices. Well, what are those devices? If you recall, that was the whole subject of Part 2 of this series. If you don't remember, or if you're watching these videos out of order, you may want to go back and take a look at that video. The video is based on the most commonly used devices on the College Board example and practice essays, which I describe in detail. I made the video with most of the information from a PDF that's available on my website, Amazon, and Teachers Pay Teachers. We need to look at the actual Let There Be Dark passage. On the next 3 slides, I've copied and pasted it. You may want to get it yourself and print it out so that you can make notes on the devices that we're going to find. So you have two options. You can continue on with this video and read the passage on the next 3 slides. After these slides, I'll show you a marked up version with the devices identified. Your other option is to pause the video and go and get the passage and print it out. If you want to do that, you can find it at 2 different spots on the College Board website. If you have a hard copy, it will be easy to follow along when I go through the marked up version, but either option will work. So let's pretend it's test day and you've just been told to open your essay booklets. Of course, the first thing you do is read the second half of the prompt to figure out the author's claim. Next, you need to read the passage and find persuasive devices. You only have 50 minutes to read, plan, and write, and this is not a lot of time. As you read, you need to be reading with a specific goal of identifying the devices. You may have time to read it twice, once for comprehension, and the second time for identifying the devices. This would be ideal, but it may not be practical for everyone. It depends on how quickly you read and comprehend. This is where practicing at home is valuable, since you'll learn how to pace yourself on actual test day. Here is Let There Be Dark. I cut and paste the entire passage on this slide and the next 2. I'm not going to read it out loud. I'll save us both that torture. So why don't you pause the video and read. Again, I won't read this to you, just pause it and read, then resume playing to move on to the third and final part of the passage. This is the last part of the passage. Just pause to read and resume playing when you're done. As promised, we're going to identify the devices that Bogard used in this passage. If you like printables and PDFs, you can find this version of the marked up passage where you find my resources, testprepspot.com, Amazon, and Teachers Pay Teachers. Also, the next 3 slides detail those devices. Hey, look at that! Are you surprised to see so many devices? And this is only about 1/3 of the passage. I told you the College Board picks passages with easily identifiable devices. So on this slide alone, you can see that Bogard used personal anecdote, imagery, statistics, information from experts, facts, cause and effect reasoning, and examples. Remember, you're identifying these devices so that you can discuss them in your essay. Don't stress out if you didn't find all of these. Remember, with my process, you only need to find 3. Let's look at the rest. On this slide, we see that Bogard used cause and effect reasoning, imagery, rhetorical questions, and exaggeration to be persuasive. So far, we've seen cause and effect reasoning and imagery used twice. I would keep these 2 in mind as potential candidates to use in your essay. On to the last chunk of the passage. Here we have statistics, information from experts, exaggeration, and example. All 4 of these are repeats, so again, you may want to consider using these since you would have more parts of the passage to connect or link to. Don't worry if that doesn't make sense. I'll go into extensive detail on how to write the essay in the video for part 4. I just wanted to point out that the more the device is used by the author, then the easier it will be to support in your essay. To summarize, Bogard used personal anecdote, imagery, statistics, information from experts, facts, cause and effect reasoning, examples, rhetorical question, and exaggeration to make his argument. However, you don't want to discuss all 9 in your essay. I recommend picking the 3 that you understand the best and feel most comfortable discussing. For example, don't pick rhetorical question if you don't know why rhetorical questions are persuasive. But maybe you understand imagery backwards and forwards and can explain its persuasiveness. Great, use that as one of your 3. Remember, the prompt is asking you to analyze how the author uses persuasive devices to strengthen his or her argument. You need to pick the devices that you understand and can explain how they're persuasive. Where are we going now that we have our 3 devices picked out? Well, I recommend writing a 5-paragraph essay with this organization. Paragraph 1 is an intro. Paragraph 2 is all about your first persuasive device. Paragraph 3 is all about your second persuasive device. And paragraph 4 is all about your third persuasive device. And finally, paragraph 5 is your conclusion. Let's break down those intro and body paragraphs a bit more. Your intro should state the author, title, and claim. You should also include your thesis statement, in which you clearly state the 3 persuasive devices that you will be discussing. For example, you may write, to convince his audience, Bogard uses a personal anecdote, statistics, and cause and effect reasoning. Again, I picked these devices because A, I identify them in the passage, and B, I understand how they are persuasive. Then, you'll use each body paragraph to discuss each device individually by identifying the device, linking the device to the passage, explaining why that link was used by the author, and how the device is persuasive. Again, this is stuff I'll cover in depth in the next video lesson, which will be part 4. I do hope you found this video helpful in understanding how to read the passage and identify the persuasive devices. With each video, I hope you're gaining confidence and a deeper understanding of what is being asked of you. Next up will be the last video, and that's part 4. In part 4, I'll show you my system for getting this essay written. With this system, which is really practical and user-friendly, you'll have a plan for writing the essay regardless of the passage that you're given on test day. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found value in this video. If you'd like to connect or you'd like some more information, you can find me at www.testprepspot.com, Amazon, and Teachers Pay Teachers. Also, please email me. I'd like to know that someone actually made it to the end of one of my videos. Oh, and there's a picture of my family. They're why I do what I do. Thanks again.